Welcome to Canada's podcast. So welcome, Eric. Welcome, Evan, to Canada's podcast. Great to see you. I'm kind of going to enjoy this part of it because I enjoy the metaverse and some of the things. But before we dive into it, why don't you tell us a little bit more? And you're going to have to overlap a little bit between the two of you here. A little bit more about yourselves. You know, we're in Toronto, obviously. Where you're from, you know, how you got here, if you like, into the kind of metaverse real estate business, if you like.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having us on. So Evan and I grew up very small town, about 2 hours outside of Toronto. It's called Blue Mountain. More specifically, it's called Thornbury, very small town. And then, you know, there's not a lot of opportunities there. So we knew that getting out was number one. So when we were 18,
there's lots of good skiing up there, but
that's all it is, right? Like we grew up skiing. My mother at the time actually worked at the ski resort, so we got free passes and we could go. So it was nice. No, it's good interruption. So we moved to Toronto at 18 with absolutely no plan, no idea what we wanted to do. We were working in bars, washing dishes and all that stuff. I lived in a frat house, you know, $400 a month. And we didn't really know what we wanted to do. We just kind of went out and did it. And then went to college. I lasted one semester, so this wasn't for me. And I offered to work for free at a real estate firm instead. So I did a bunch of cold email, cold call. And one guy actually said, I offered to work for free for 6 months. And if he liked me, he could hire me as his assistant. So that's how I got into real estate. And he was a commercial broker in Toronto. He was fairly well known at the time, and just kind of worked my way up and then moved into private equity and the finance side of things. And I'll let Ev kind of tell his story, but that's how I initially got into real estate, fell in love with it. It was like this great combination of running your own business, being an entrepreneur, but also seeing results happen as you work hard instead of just collecting a paycheck. And that's something that really appealed to me very, very early. And then Ev did kind of the same thing in the residential side. And then around 2018, I personally started investing into Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then I actually launched a cryptocurrency investment company in 2020. And then I was dabbling in virtual real estate because it was obviously two of my favorite things in the world combined. And then mid last year, I came up with the idea of creating a metaverse REIT. And then obviously MREIT was born. And then we've just been kind of on a roller coaster ever since. So that's how it all really came about. And I just put a team around, like if we were chatting prior, I put a team around me and said, this is my vision. And that's kind of how it came. And Ev, I'll let you dive in, but Ev kind of helped with the branding and the marketing and really made us position well. So, yeah.
So Ev, give us a bit of your story then.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Eric and I have been pretty much in the trenches together ever since we left high school. So we both got into real estate at the same time, and he went more the commercial route and I went through the residential route. But I started from like the ground up in the brokerage business, doing like answering phones and doing the admin desk. And then I became an assistant as well. And then Eric and I finally launched out on our own. But I've always been more interested in the branding strategy and marketing side of things as opposed to the sales stuff. So Eric's always kind of been like our sales guy, like in our dynamic. And I've always been kind of like the branding and, you know, design and more creative side. So when we launched MREIT, he had this idea about tokenizing it as well. And then I just came on board and said, you know, I think we should do this. And, you know, we kind of created this accessibility, you know, strategy so everybody could kind of get a piece if they couldn't afford, you know, the expensive land. But yeah, we pretty much have the, you know, the same background, but he's always been more of the sales guy, and I've been more of the branding. And
so you guys did the real estate thing, but you know, when you're moving into it, and then that's kind of, it's not really financing involved in it. It's really effort and selling fundamentally. You've moved into a different space now. You know, in one sense, you could argue, well, it's metaverse real estate, so it's really the same thing, but but it requires more upfront time, money, investment to build those properties, if you like, those virtual properties that you're talking about. How did you manage to step from one to the other? Because that's a bit. It sounds you're saying real estate, but really they're not the same worlds. So or maybe
Ironically, in my opinion, a lot of the principles and philosophies in real world real estate can be applied to metaverse real estate, and I'm just talking about like buildings and leasing, and a lot of the same stuff can be applied. So when people ask me, do you need real world real estate experience to get into the metaverse? My answer is always it helps, because the same philosophies are taken to the metaverse as far as like building up properties and developing them and getting brands in there and creating that presence, if you will. But everything else, like what interested me the most about not just the metaverse, but Web3 as a whole, was the whole decentralized finance thing. And that's something that, when I first was introduced to this stuff, I dove into it, head first and took courses on it. And it's just, I'm in love with that stuff. The whole decentralized aspect of not just the metaverse, but Web3 and finance and where things are going. So a lot of it was, diving in and learning as much as you can. And I think that's been kind of the exciting part for me as well, because you can kind of combine the creativity with, your real estate experience or your finance experience and come up like with a whole, realm of opportunities. So yeah, it's been a lot of learning, and I love that about it. There's something every day is coming up that's new to me, and I'm, learning it and trying to be an expert as much as I can.
You're not working for a franchise organization. You are the organization. That's sort of what I meant. It's that step from having this franchise around you, kind of feeding you with leads and stuff like that, to being the franchise, the virtual, whether it be a meta franchise or whatever, being that and creating it. I mean, what's the sort of learning experience of that step? Because that I see that as very. Yes, you could argue, meta real estate has. I get that piece of it, but becoming the source, if you like, versus the kind of collector, if you like, is a little different.
Yeah, it is, and it's I don't know if I'm lagging.
I think for me,
we're having some issues here in terms of
like back. We started our you're
Eric, you're cutting out.
Yeah, we usually be losing Eric. I don't think it's.
Yeah, I know. I stopped talking my internet. Am I back?
I think so.
You're back now. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm actually in Mexico City, so it's a little.
That's probably the problem, because Evan and myself are fine, and you're cutting out basically.
Is it better now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think, when I started working in the commercial world, my boss wasn't like a traditional broker. Like, he did a lot of financing. We worked with a lot of developers. So we worked on a REIT together, and I got some exposure on how to fund and form a REIT at a very early age. And then I went out and moved to a private equity firm where we were structuring real estate funds. And we ended up, Evan and I, creating our own real estate company, our first one when we were 26, which was to go out, get investors, find properties and fix them up and rent them out. Mm-hmm. So it kind of, for me, the transition has been, you know, obviously there's a learning curve, but the transition has been fairly organic where, you know, I saw what a REIT was doing. I was working with accredited investors every single day. I saw this opportunity where tokenization could allow access to people that didn't traditionally need to be accredited. And that was very interesting to me because it was like all these opportunities are being presented to these wealthy people. But what about the everyday people who could potentially make money? So the transition was like, you know, instead of working with accredited investors, we just had to create a good product and the investors would come to us via token holders. So it was a bit of a learning curve, but the mentality to me was kind of the same because you know, whether you're going to invest into a real property, you have to find the right location. The numbers have to make sense. Your investors need to be happy. And then you have a timeline and all that stuff. So we kind of took that thought process and created Emery. And instead of just virtual properties, we were going to go out and purchase, you know, metaverse NFTs. But then it came kind of clear that, you know, we need tokenomics to be extremely solid and we need a developer to make sure that this can be done. And then, you know, the whole decentralized Web3 thing is like information sharing. So we had to be extremely transparent with everything we're doing. So it's, you know, you take things from your last life and you bring it into your new one and you obviously learn things as you go and then you kind of build a stepping ladder, in my opinion. So it's been fairly organic, but obviously jumping in has been rewarding, but difficult.
So this is about the two of you, your entrepreneurial journey, if you like, as well as Web3 and that kind of thing. So let's kind of just switch a little bit. Let me ask you, did you just stumble into being entrepreneurs, you think? Or, you know, it's kind of interesting. I don't hear, I worked here for this amount of time and then I did this. And it sounds like it was just like, I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, I ask this regularly. I mean, are we, because I'm one of you, wired differently or something like that? Is there something, I think we've all got friends. I mean, not all of my friends are entrepreneurs by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, yeah. What's the sense?
It definitely takes a different breed, I think. And I think it's a much bigger psychological question on why, we all do what we do. But for Eric and I specifically, I think the foundation of what made us go that route was we grew up in a very, poor upbringing. Our parents were divorced. So we saw very early on what we didn't want, when we got to the age where we could make our own decisions. And it wasn't all easy. Like we were, volatile. We made decisions, based off of little information. We would go out and do stuff and it would fail. But it was the excitement of going out, and just trying it out. And we were never afraid to jump in. And if we fell on our, if we fell down doing it, we didn't care. Like that was part of the excitement for us. So I think it takes first and foremost a comfortability of like failing and not being scared of the risk level or, you know what I mean? Like, I guess in another sense exactly too. Yeah, and we always had each other too, which I think is a huge benefit. Like in retrospect,
I could see that. That's
because if one of us went in and did something, we were probably doing it together. And if one of us failed, we had the other one to kind of pick us up. And so I think it kind of made us really cool, a little less sensitive to the bad scenario.
That might be I was going to ask you. I had a couple of great mentors on the way for myself. Did you guys, or did you in fact end up mentoring each other? I mean, maybe Eric, maybe you answer this one.
Yeah, well, it's funny because even though we were always doing things together, we had extremely different paths along the way. Like when I got into commercial and sort of corporate, my first boss became my mentor, and he kind of instilled a lot of things that I was just new to me. And he was an extreme, let's just say he was very unorthodox in his way of thinking. And it kind of kind of opened up my mind and how to sort of approach things and how to structure things going forward. But so he acted as my first mentor. I learned a ton from him. And then when we were doing the REIT financing, I was introduced to another guy who I didn't know at the time. And he was a big political figure, and he became sort of my mentor. And he taught me that relationships are really everything, and you want to work with people that you're excited to be around. So those two guys really helped me when I was very young, like we're talking early 20s. But then it just became kind of, I was really like, I really admire people that are close to me that I don't necessarily need to know them, but like, I saw like Mike Weckerly at Earl's once, and I didn't know who he was. And I asked who he was, and then I figured out his story. And I find inspiration from people who don't necessarily have it easy, but figured out a way. And I don't need to know you, but I just need to know your story and everything that you've kind of been through. And I think Evan and I kind of find that in each other because, our risk level is extremely high. We don't really fear failure. And if we do, it's a learning experience. So I kind of find mentors all over the place. Now I've got a really great team with me, and one guy has been, in the business for 20 years. He's brought companies public. He's sold a couple companies for a lot of money, and now he's kind of teaching me how to be a better CEO and stuff. So it's I'm just like a sponge, man, and I don't put anybody on a pedestal, and I don't put myself on one either. And I think that's kind of the attitude. Back to Evan, like our upbringing, we never really, we don't think one thing is the right way ever. We always think there's more than one option to do things, and mentors will come and go. But I think it's important to learn what you can from everybody that you work with. Really,
that's a good point. If let's start with you, Evan. If you had to pick one or two words to describe yourself, what would they be and why?
I'm interested to hear this.
I would say the first two things that come to mind is I'm reflective and creative. I think I bring a lot of, creative ideas to the table. But I think the main thing is I'm always thinking not just about myself, but about what I'm doing and, what we're doing as a company. So being reflective and kind of seeing yourself, perception wise, and how you could do things and what's working and what's not, and how you could react to things differently. And, just try to better yourself as, in any aspect, whether it's, business or in your day to day. That's something that I'm huge on, and at least at this period of my life right now, so it's, I'd like to say the first and foremost is I'm a reflective person, and I'm always conscious about, how we interact with each other and how we do business and how we can be better.
Eric, what about yourself?
I don't know. That's funny. I'm like the opposite of Evan. So it's like Evan and I are very, very much self-aware and very reflective. I think you have to be. So, always weighing what you're doing and the consequences. Of course, we do that, and why we do things and the results of the things we do. But I think I'm, more resilient and more of an opportunist. I think it takes a lot for me to really stay down. Like if I want something, it's not really an option to really fail. And I try to see opportunity in a lot of things. And I think, that's why we're doing this and why I invested into Bitcoin fairly early. But so I think, I don't know, I'm pretty resilient. When it comes to business, it's basically like Evan's got all these, hobbies that he likes to do. And he's a very creative individual. And me, it's just, I want to know what's going to be, the next big thing, or how can I make the business better? I'm very obsessed with that. So finding opportunity, I think right now is like honestly one of the best times probably in our generation for what's really happening with the blockchain. So I'm extremely, passionate and excited about what's happening. And I'm trying to I've brought up DeFi, and it's like that whole world is extremely fascinating. And so I'm kind of like a kid back in kindergarten with everything that's happening.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great, all of this stuff, creating various systems to leverage, the metaverse. But how do you do that and protect the investor, the end user? I liked your perspective on opening it up by tokenizing and allowing everyone to play. But on the other hand, if someone doesn't have that money to throw away, how can they feel? You can never feel entirely safe, But is there any perspective you can give on that, either of you?
I have a few points. Eric, you can touch more on the investor specific stuff, especially traditionally. But in this world, like metaverse and Web3, the community has kind of been the heartbeat of where the trust is at with companies. So if founders are in the Discord and the white paper's clear and everything's being answered, I found that an enormous amount of trust comes from the community. And, if the people who are running the project are in the Discord answering questions, doing Q&As, like Eric said earlier, transparency in this game is more important than ever, especially coming from maybe a traditional finance background. So being transparent with the community and building trust within the community, I think, is the number one way to make investors feel as secure as they can outside of maybe the traditional, investor talk that Eric can probably touch on.
Yeah, Eric, why don't we get your perspective? I'm sure some of it might be the same, but we're back into.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm cutting out again, but can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you now. Yeah, you were a bit, but
yeah. I think what?
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think it's a tricky thing. My background is they have to be accredited. They have to fill out certain documents. You have to file Reg D, all of this stuff, right? It's a lot of red tape, and I'm still torn, right? Because the idea for Web3 is the information is with the holder, and you can be able to do certain things that you wish to do. And I think why tokenization will become such an important part is it allows anybody to really get involved. And we make it very clear that you should do your own research, understand what the company is trying to do. My background for the last couple of years has been heavily involved in crypto, and I see it time and time again where people will just invest into something with the hopes that it'll pump. And I tell all of our members, don't invest with us if that's what you want, because yes, we had a great pump, but we're long-term. So I think, it's educating. It's like telling them, how do we get to where we want to go? Do you believe in the project? And if you do, join our community, join our Discord. I'm in there. Let's chat. If you have questions, like we just did a Q&A last night. So we try to build trust that way. And I think with Web3, it'll be interesting because, of course, there's going to be regulation down the road. It's already starting to happen, especially with like DAOs and exchanges right now. So I think, we need to keep a level of, Web3, you can make your own decisions, never invest more than you can afford to lose. I think everybody knows that at this point, but it needs to be mentioned time and time again. But we need this balance of, we need regulation to keep, all the scams and the bad players out, but we need a level of Web3 authority where the information is still yours. You're welcome to do what you want with your own money. So I think it's going to be good what's going to happen, in my opinion. But in terms of how do we protect the investors, we always make it very clear. Read the white paper, read our website, stay in our Discord for a while. People are always talking in the Discord too, like they're asking questions. We have like a Q&A section. We have like a project section. We have like a free chat section. So we will never just be like, buy our coin and forget about us. It's more of, join us. And it's funny because the power of community is amazing. Like we got introduced to so many opportunities through our token holders, and we love that. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this really all plays out. But I do think there's going to be a new class of regulation that will be introduced that'll be specifically for digital currencies and blockchain projects. And I also think on top of that, companies will start to tokenize more and more. Like I think there's a tremendous opportunity for companies like Airbnb or, whether it's real estate rentals or WeWork to create their own currency, their own tokenization where it can be used as a utility token within their project, within their company. So that's another whole thing, but it's all information, right? Like everybody has access to.
Absolutely agree with you on that front.
Yeah.
So what's keeping you guys up at night?
Yes. What do you mean? Like in a good way or a bad way?
I don't know. You tell me.
It's funny because when growing up, I would like be an insomniac because I would dream about things that I wanted to make happen for my life. Now it's more, I don't know. Like I think there's so much opportunity, and I think with blockchain specifically, opportunities come and like we told our token holders from day one, like where we're at now could be very different where we're at 6 weeks. So I'm always up thinking, reading, thinking, where is this going to go? What's going to happen? And then you see a company do something pretty interesting and you're like, well, damn, can I do that? Or can we do some form of that? So I don't know. I'm always thinking down the road. I don't really, it's funny. Like I don't stress too much. I'm very much like, if there's something that's bothering me, I'm very like, I don't even want to hear the problem. Like, how do we fix it? So I don't know. I don't lose sleep over bad things. I'm more thinking, where is this really going? Because it's like an endless black hole, but it's in a good way.
So Evan, does that mean you're the worrier?
I wouldn't say I'm the worrier. I think I'm the rational one, if anything. I think I bring a voice to reason to some of maybe Eric's, scattered brain here and there. But
yeah, he like pulls me back and he's like, no.
No, we just got to, dice it up in a way that makes sense. And, but yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been really good. We're reaching the end of our time, guys. And I could go on for quite a lot longer, but we're gonna have to close it. So, how can people get a hold of you guys? I mean, if we have quite a lot of people download or view our podcasts, and I always like them to be able to get a hold of who we've been talking to.
Yeah, we've got our website's mreit.io. If you look us up on Instagram, Twitter, it's Metaspace REIT. And then all of our Discord and stuff is on our website. So you guys can go there and all the information you need. We've got our whole team on there, the white paper, but it's mreit.io.
Okay. All right, good. Thanks, guys. Been great having you on. Really enjoyed meeting you.
Yeah, you as well. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.